Hello and welcome to your Lettings Finance Training Advanced 3. In this video we're going to be looking at bank reconciliation. That's going to cover imported statement bank reconciliation, manual reconciliation, journal transfers, bank transfers, and finally your bank reconciliation report. So within Expert Agent there are two different types of reconciliation. As we just said, the first is imported statement reconciliation. The process involved in that is that you're going to download your bank statement from your bank. You've then got the facility to upload that into Expert Agent to allow you to import the transactions that have happened through your bank account and bring them into Expert Agent to reconcile them against your landlord payments and your rent charges. If you want to use the imported statement reconciliation, it's important to remember that you won't need to process your rent receipts through Expert Agent in the usual way. So that's via your finance menu and receiving your rents in via your rent arrears report or your outstanding transactions, because those receipts will be coming in via your bank statement. So using the rent arrears or outstanding transactions reports will duplicate those rents and will mean you'll have two amounts of rents received on that record. So it's really important, if you're going to be using the imported statement method, that you are aware that that is going to put those rents that have been received onto the tenancy statements, so you won't need to use your rent arrears or outstanding transactions. So before we look at uploading a statement, there's a bit of maintenance work we'll need to do with our statement that we've downloaded from our bank, just to make sure that's in the correct format that it needs to be for it to upload correctly in Expert Agent. So first of all, you need your statement to be in a CSV file. So when you're downloading that from your bank, you need to download it in a CSV format. That is the only format that will work, so make sure that you've downloaded your file in a CSV format. Other things we need to be looking at in that file is that you have a separate debit and credit column. So I know some banks will download their spreadsheets and they will all be in one column, and you'll have your credits positives there and your debits will be negatives in the same column. You need to make sure, if that's the case, that you split those out. So you need a separate column for your debits, that's your payments leaving your bank, and your credits, your payments coming into your bank. You need to make sure that your date is in the correct format. So that needs to be day, day, month, month, year, 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 year. It won't work if you've just got, for example, 11/11/16. It needs to be 11/11/2016 in order for that to work. So if you need to, just make sure you change the format of that date column. Other important thing to look at is your reference for the payment. So in order for Expert Agent to map these payments for you, your tenants need to be using the same reference when they're making the payments to you each month. So make sure that those references on your standing order forms, etc., are used by your tenants, so that the reference that's coming in on your bank statement each month is the same, and that will allow you to map that payment into Expert Agent and save you time when importing your statement. Okay, so once you've checked the format of your statement and you've saved it as that CSV file, you're ready to import that into Expert Agent. So the way you're going to do that is via your top finance menu, into Accounts, and into Imported Statement Reconciliation. This is the screen you'll be presented with on your uploaded statements awaiting mapping. You'll need to select the bank account that this statement's for, so whether that be your client account, your deposit account, etc. You'll then need to select your statement to upload and then click the upload button there. Once uploaded, the statement will appear in the box below. If you've uploaded the incorrect statement, you've got the option to delete by ticking that box at the end, scrolling down to the bottom and clicking delete selected. Once you're confident you've uploaded the correct statement there, you'll be able to click on the statement, and that's going to give you the chance just to map your particular columns. So if this isn't the first statement you're uploading, you'll have the opportunity to use one of your saved mappings. So Expert Agent will automatically be able to know which columns are which in the statement, so you can use one of those. If not, and if it's your first time, you're going to need to set that mapping. So you'll just need to tell Expert Agent which column is which. So you're going to choose your reference column, which in my case is my narrative, my date column, which is my date, debit amount, just debit there, and same for credit. If I wanted to save this mapping for use in future, I can just give my mapping a name and click Save Mapping. That will mean the next statement that I upload, I won't need to make all of these selections here. I'll just be able to use my saved mapping and Expert Agent will input all these fields for me. Once you have that, statement will save and it will move into your map statements awaiting reconciliation. In this section, you'll see any statements that you've uploaded and mapped into Expert Agent that haven't yet been finished. So you'll see the account name that they've been mapped against, your statement file name, the date you've uploaded them, who they were uploaded by, the total amount of records, so that's the transactions that are on that statement, the amount of transactions that have been reconciled so far. Also from this screen you're able to complete, so confirm that you finished reconciling all the items you want on this statement, or again delete it if you've realised that it's incorrect by ticking the delete button, and that will remove it for you. So we're ready to start reconciling the items on our statement now, so I'm just going to click on the statement there, and that's going to open up our statement in Expert Agent. So I'll be able to see all the transactions that we were looking at in our CSV file, and you'll be able to see that those fields that we mapped from our CSV into Expert Agent have now pulled through. So we've got our reference, our date, our debits, our credits, and then we've got an amount reconciled column and an amount outstanding column. Okay, so it's just confirming that we've either reconciled that item or it's still outstanding there. We've got the option on the far left hand side to ignore any transactions. So for if any reason you don't want to reconcile a transaction on your bank statement into Expert Agent, say it's an interest payment or something like that that's not really going to relate to your client account, is not coming through into Expert Agent, or you may have happened to manually reconcile that and processed it manually through Expert Agent already. In the scenario that we were talking earlier with our rents, maybe you'd already received the payment in via your rent arrears or your outstanding transactions. You've got the option to tick and ignore that transaction. You need to confirm with Expert Agent that you want to mark this entry as reconciled and ignored and click OK. That will turn that transaction green and the ignore tick box is now ghosted out for me. Okay, so that's just me confirming that I'm not going to want to import that transaction into Expert Agent. I've already dealt with it elsewhere. So process now really is going to be just to work down this statement, getting these transactions imported in. So I'm just going to click on my first one at the top here, which is a credit of £1,000. So that's a receipt coming into my bank of £1,000. I'll get this pop up for reconciling a receipt. Okay, so from this screen I'm able to either select the tenant or the landlord that this receipt relates to, and I've got the option now to map this reference that my tenants have used on their standing order form, so that in future when I'm receiving in payments from Mr. Easter here, Expert Agent will know, it will pick up that reference and it will automatically map it against his tenancy record, so I won't need to search for his tenant each time. Because this is the first time I've received in a payment via the imported statement for Mr. Easter, I'm going to need to tell Expert Agent which tenancy I need to map this receipt against. So the way I'm going to do this is by clicking the plus icon alongside the tenant and searching for him. When I click on his name there, it's going to populate the tenant details there for me. I'll then need to come down to the bottom and save. Once that saves, that receipt will turn green. The amount reconciled column is now changed to 1,000 and the amount outstanding is now 0. Next one there, just clicking on Mr. Johnson for Union Street there. Again, this is the first time I'm receiving in a payment by imported statement for Mr. Johnson, so I need to select his tenant record there. That's going to populate the tenant details for me, and I'm just going to save. Same with Wilson Hardy, Wellsway there. Plus icon. Populated the tenant, and save. So you would just work down your bank statement, marking all those receipts in, and choosing the record to map them against. That's going to mean in future, when Expert Agent sees a receipt on my bank statement with this reference here, it's going to know that it's for Ms. Wilson Hardy at Wellsway, and it's automatically going to map it against that transaction for me. So that's why it's really important that we were talking about those references on your standing orders, etc., and that the tenant uses the same reference for each payment they make. If they do that, that will allow Expert Agent to map that transaction against that tenant for you. If I just close this pop-up down for you now, we will see our statement is now showing 12 records, 4 of which have been reconciled. So this total's updated for me. I know that we've reconciled 4 of those items. Okay, so clicking back into it, let's now have a look at some different entries. Let's have a look at some debit entries. Okay, so these are going to be the payments that have left your bank account. So I've got one here for £760, Mr. Cap. So this is going to be me reconciling my payments that I've made via Expert Agent against the payments that I've made out of my bank account. So clicking on Mr. Cat there, I'm going to get this reconcile payment box pop up. What that's going to do for me is it's going to search through all the landlord payments and payments going out, so landlords, contractor, agency, etc. And it's going to search for all the payments of that exact amount for me. Okay, so we've got exact credits selected at the top here. So it's looking for those payments that I've put through Expert Agent that match up with the payment that's showing on my bank statement. I've only got one for the 760 amount, which is my landlord payment for 1 Church Row, which I know via the reference off of the bank statement is the correct one, Church Row there. So I could just tick alongside it and save. I'll get a pop-up to confirm I want to reconcile that entry, which I am, so I'll select yes. And again, that entry will turn green there. My next one down there. Okay, so again, my payment for Cat, Princess Buildings. Ticking to confirm and saving. I'm sure I want to reconcile that entry, and it's turned green for me there. So that's my landlord payments. Let's look at this entry here, this 43440. So if I click on this one, okay, I'm getting a pop-up to say that there are no exact matches, so Expert Agent's now going to show me all payments that are less than the entry amount. So this is probably 9 times out of 10 going to happen where you have made a bulk payment. So for your agency payments, which is the prime example of this one, so whereby lots of invoices have come in, and instead of transferring £10 here, £10 there, you've transferred all of those across from your client account to your agency account in one bulk. So Expert Agent knows that there's no exact matches, so it's going to show you all the lower items there that you can hopefully match up to that 43440 amount to reconcile against. So I know from my reference that this is my Bex Estate payment, so these are my agency payments in this case. So what I need to do now is just tick alongside my agency payments. As I tick, you'll see that the allocated amount changes there and the unallocated amount changes, so I know that I've got that much left to reconcile. Okay, so it's now at 33720 and my unallocated is 9720. So I tick that last one. I've now got the full 43440 and nothing unallocated. So I'm happy that my amount that I've paid out of my client account in my bank, my 43440, was in fact for these 4 agency payments. So I can save that there. I'll get the pop-up again to make sure I want to reconcile these 4 entries, which I do. And that's turned green for me there. So that's reconciling your bank statement. You're just going to work down the transactions, reconciling them against. With your credits, that's your rents coming in, so you're going to map them against your tenant record or your landlord record. Any entries that you don't want to map into Expert Agent, you don't want to bring in, you're going to tick to ignore. Any payments that are going out, you're going to map them against the payment. Expert Agent is going to try and find that payment amount for you. If it can't, like it couldn't for our agency payments here, it's going to show you all the lower amounts to allow you to try and match them up to that amount should you have made a bulk payment. Once you've finished working your way through all of your statement there and everything is green, you can close out of your statement. You'll see 12 out of 12 entries have been reconciled. I can now complete this statement, and that will move it from this map statements awaiting reconciliation list over into my reconciled statements. This reconciled statements page is just for your reference. I can click on my statement there and it will load all the transactions so I can see them. But I can't do anything with it. It's been completed. Once you've finished mapping and reconciling your entries in Expert Agent, we can have a look at how that's going to affect your tenants and your landlord records now. So if we close our imported statement reconciliation down, and if we now have a look at our landlord record for Mr. Cat, who we were reconciling our transactions for, if we go to his statement tab and we scroll down, here we see our landlord payment for 1 Church Row for £760 is now showing yes, it's been reconciled in our reconciliation column there. Same for our landlord payment for 4 Princess Buildings of 80280, it's showing as yes, so that's been reconciled. Okay, so that's told Expert Agent that that payment that's gone out of our bank, that we've found on our bank statement, we've reconciled it against the payment that we've made in Expert Agent, and that's changed that transaction there to reconciled. Let's have a look at a tenancy statement. And the statement tab. So we've now got on our tenancy statement here, we've got a payment received via bank transfer, which is the payment that we've imported in off of our statement for £900 from Miss Wilson Hardy. And again, it's got yes in our reconcile column because we've confirmed that that has gone through our bank. We've reconciled that entry. Let's have a look at another one. On the statement tab, payment received by bank transfer from Mr. Johnson, £580, and yes, it's been reconciled. The next step we need to do after completing our imported statement, so once we've been through and marked all those transactions as reconciled, is we now need to let Expert Agent know what those receipts that have come in are for from our tenants. So we're now allocating those receipts against the rent charges they relate to. So the way we're going to do that is via our top finance menu and our unallocated funds tenancies report. So this is going to give us a list of all our tenancies that have funds on that haven't yet been allocated against anything. You can order this report by your tenant's name, the property address, or the unallocated amount there. You'll see we've got Mr. Johnson in here for 3 Union Street. This is the £580 that we received this morning via imported statement. If I click on that entry there, what we'll have is our screen that we can use to allocate. So at the bottom we've got our 580 unallocated, which is the receipt that we confirmed is coming off of our bank statement. We've got an outstanding rent charge, so I know that that rent that's been paid today is for Mr. Johnson's November rent charge. So I can simply tick alongside that rent charge. That changes our unallocated amount to 0 there, and I can save. Okay, if I close that list and reopen it again, he's no longer there. We can do the same with Miss Wilson Hardy for Wells Way, another one we received in this morning. We've got our £900 there. We know that's for our November rent, so we can tick to allocate and we can save. Same with Mr. Easter, another one we received this morning. We know that the money we received was for the November rent charge, so we can tick to allocate and save. Okay, so you're just going to work your way through your unallocated funds report, allocating all those rents that you've received via the imported statement against the charges that they relate to. We'll just have a final look at a tenancy statement to see how that now affects it. So if we go via my navigation into one of the tenancies that we were looking at and back to the statement tab, we'll now see that our receipt that we received in via the bank transfer has been allocated against our rent charge that's now changed as paid, and our landlord will be ready to pay that rent. So just to surmise, on our imported statement reconciliation, we're going to download from our bank our CSV file. We're going to check that that bank statement is in the right format, so we've got the date, we've got a separate column for our credits and our debits. We're going to come to Finance, Accounts and Imported Statement Reconciliation. We're going to select the account that we're uploading to. We're going to upload our file. We're going to map that statement against our particular columns in Expert Agent, which is going to move it to our map statements awaiting reconciliation. We're going to work down that bank statement, reconciling those credits against our tenancies and our debits against the landlord payments, agency payments, contractor payments, whatever it may be. We're going to tick to ignore any transactions that we don't want to bring forward into Expert Agent. When we're finished, we're going to complete that bank statement, which is going to move it over into our reconciled statements. What we're then going to need to do with our credits, so our money coming into Expert Agent, is come to our top finance menu and come to our unallocated funds tenancies, and we're going to allocate those receipts that we've received in against the charges that they relate to, and that's going to allow us to pay our landlords those monies with our payments out, so our debits off of that statement, they're just going to get marked as reconciled on that statement. There we go. So if you don't want to use the imported statement reconciliation, the other option you have is just to process your rent receipts as normal. So via your finance and using your rent arrears or outstanding transactions, so processing them manually. What you then might find you'll want to do once a month is manually reconcile those transactions to ensure that everything that you've processed through Expert Agent has gone through your account. So the way you're going to do that is via your top finance menu, into Accounts and into Manual Reconciliation. You'll be presented with this screen. You've got the option to search your transactions in Expert Agent between a certain date range, so you can come from maybe the start of the month to the current date, or leaving that top box blank, we'll just search for everything from the beginning of time. You're going to confirm the bank account that you're reconciling for, so client, deposit, etc. And then you're going to hit the search button. When you search, Expert Agent is going to load for you all the transactions that you've posted through Expert Agent manually that you haven't yet confirmed have been reconciled. Okay. So I've got receipts here and also payments out, the amounts, the method they were received, the date they were received, and the records that they relate to. Also at the top I've got a reconcile balance to date, so that's my current reconcile balance in Expert Agent. So in theory, that reconcile balance should match with my bank statement that I've printed off at my start bank statement balance. And I'm now going to work down my bank statement, finding these transactions and ticking them off as reconciled. Okay, so as they appear on your bank statement, you're just going to tick them off. As you tick each transaction, the reconcile balance to date total will change. So hopefully you can keep that against your total balance column, your running balance column on your bank statement to ensure that the two match and you know you're reconciling the correct transactions. So I tick that one as well. Tick my payment and another receipt there. When you're happy and you've ticked everything that needs to be reconciled, you're going to click Manually Reconcile Selected Entries. You'll get the pop-up to confirm you're sure you want to reconcile them, which I am, so I'm going to click Yes. And you'll get the pop-up to say they've been successfully reconciled. Any transactions that are appearing on your bank statement that aren't appearing in Expert Agent, so they're not appearing in that manual reconciliation screen, you'll want to do some investigating and work out why they're not appearing there. It may be that you've missed a transaction through Expert Agent. Equally, if there is a transaction in that manual reconciliation that you don't have on your bank statement, again, something's gone wrong there. Maybe you haven't made a payment that you should have made, so you need to go through and make that from your bank. So it's a worthwhile process to do once a month, just to check that you've processed everything you need to check that all your transactions are correct, and to make sure you haven't made any mistakes there. If we were to look at one of our tenancy records now, and look at the Statement tab, we'll see there that receipt that we just ticked in our manual reconciliation is now showing as yes in the reconciled column, so we've confirmed that in fact that transaction has gone through our bank. Okay, so that's our manual reconciliation. We're essentially going to print off our bank statement. We're going to come to Finance, Accounts and Manual Reconciliation. We're going to choose our date range. We're going to confirm our bank account and we're going to hit the search button. We're then going to work down the list that's provided, ticking off those transactions as they appear on our bank statement, and tick to manually reconcile them to confirm that they have happened. Anything that's missing off either Expert Agent or your bank statement, those items need to be checked one way or the other to make sure that they are correct. Other functions you can do via your top finance menu and your accounts submenu are journal and bank transfers. So let's have a look at a bank transfer first of all. So bank transfers are going to be bank transfers you're carrying out within Expert Agent. So it may be the case that you have a separate client account and a separate deposit account. It may be that your tenants pay their monies when they move into the property into your client account. You then register that deposit and you hold it in your deposit account for the duration of the tenancy. So you've got a separate deposit account that you hold your deposits in. In reality, you're going to move that money from one account to the other. You're going to do a bank transfer. So you need to be able to do the same on Expert Agent so that that money is sitting in the correct account to allow you to reconcile effectively. So if I click on bank transfers there, what I'm going to be presented with is a bank transfer box. I need to confirm the transaction date. I need to confirm the bank account the money is going from. So in our deposit scenario, that's going to be my client account. The bank account that money is going to, so that's going to be my deposit account. I need to give it a description. And I need to enter the amount in there. A really important part to do now, I'm now going to allocate the records to this deposit transfer so Expert Agent knows what that £800 is for. So I'm going to do that by assigning the tenancy. And I'm also going to assign my applicant. Now the reason I'm assigning both tenant and applicant is because I may have the case where I've got multiple tenants in my tenancy. So Miss Nathan Wong might be living there with a friend, with a partner, something like that. I need to make sure that expert agent knows that that money relates directly to her in the tenancy rather than anyone else in the tenancy. So for that reason, I'm assigning tenant and applicant to my transfer. We don't need to assign landlord or property because this money is the tenant's money that we're holding for the duration of the tenancy. So it's just in this scenario, my tenancy and my applicant that I'm going to be assigning. And then I'm going to save. Okay, I'll get a green pop-up to confirm that that transaction has been completed successfully. If I now go on to my tenancy, nothing for that's going to show on my statement tab for my tenant because it's a transfer that's happened internally. Okay, it's not money that's come in or gone out. It's a transfer that's happened between my two bank accounts to move that money for me. If I did need to cancel that transaction for any reason, because I have assigned this tenancy to my transaction, to my transfer, I can do it from this tenancy record by right-clicking Financial and Cancel Transactions, and you'll see there my deposit transfers at the top. Okay, so because I've assigned my tenancy and my applicant, as we can see on the right hand side here, expert agent knows that that money relates to this tenancy. If I were to have a look in my audit trail, and if we just look at today's date and hit report, and scroll down to the bottom here, we'll see the transfer that we've just carried out. Okay, so we've got a journal transfer, JT stands for our transfer there, our description, which is our deposit transfer, our two records that we've assigned, and we've got a debit going into our deposits accounts, that's money going in, and a credit coming out of our client account. Other thing we can look at alongside bank transfers are journal transfers, which again is via the top finance menu, accounts and journal transfers. So a classic reason we might use a journal transfer is if you are posting an opening balance into Expert Agent and that opening balance doesn't relate to a particular client. So it's just a generic bank balance. Maybe you've got a float in the account or you've got some money that's come in and you don't know who it relates to. So you can't post it to a particular landlord or tenant account, but that money is sat in your bank account, so you want to post that as an opening balance. So the way we can do that is via a journal transfer. So if I click journal transfer there, similar to our bank transfer screen, Expert Agent wants you to confirm a transaction date, so a date that this has happened. Your debit nominal, so that's where our money is going to. So in my case, this is going to be my client account. My credit nominal is going to be my opening balance control. My description, and my amount there. Now I'm not assigning any records on this occasion because this money doesn't relate to a particular tenant or a particular landlord, so I'm going to save that there. If we again look at our audit trail, and we look down at the bottom there, we've now got a journal transfer, there's a £500. So it's debiting into our client account, so it's positive in there. It's a credit on our opening balance control. It's a journal transfer, it's got our description, and there are no records assigned to it. Other things you might use journal transfers for, maybe bank interest or bank charges. If you want to post those into Expert Agent, you can do that by way of a journal transfer. Your debit nominal might be your bank charges. Your credit nominal will be a client account. And the amount. We're not assigning any records again because it relates to our bank account rather than a tenant or a landlord in particular. And save. We go back to our audit trail. Scroll down to the bottom there. We'll see we now got a debit in our bank charge nominal. We've got a credit. It's that £21.50 leaving our client account there. Okay, so your bank transfers and journal transfers will allow you to move money and post transactions that don't relate to either a particular tenancy or landlord record, or also move any money between accounts that you may need to do, ensuring that if you do a bank transfer, you remember to assign the tenancy record or landlord record that that transfer relates to. Final thing that we need to have a look at in terms of your bank reconciliation is your bank reconciliation report. So once you've reconciled your transactions in either way, whether that be via your imported statement or via your manual rec, there is a report that you can produce for Expert Agent, which is your bank reconciliation report, which your accountant or your bookkeeper may want to receive from you each month, just to ensure that they know you've reconciled and they know what that money in your bank account relates to. So via your top finance menu, you can go to reporting and you can go to bank reconciliation. You'll want to confirm the branch that you're reconciling for. You'll want to confirm the bank account. And you'll want to enter your from and to dates. So your from and to dates are the period that you're wanting to see the transactions for, so they're probably the month that you've just reconciled. On the right hand side you've got a tick box for include balance brought forward. I'm going to recommend that you always tick this box when running this report, because what that will do is it will show any figures that have been produced outside this period. So any transactions that have happened in August, September, for example, that are having an effect on your bank balance. So it may be rents that you've received in September that you haven't yet paid out. Ticking that box for include balance brought forward will make sure that your figures are correct. So once you're happy with your selections, you're clicking report. That's going to load the following screen for you. So at the top you're going to see your debits. So this is all the money coming in to your Barclays Bank client account. So you can see all my receipts in here. If I scroll across, we'll also be able to see that all my receipts have got a yes in this reconcile column, which means that thank goodness I've reconciled all my receipts that have come in for the month of October. They've all gone through my bank. I know I've completed them all correctly. Anything that you haven't yet reconciled, so you weren't sure about and you'd left it as a query, will show no in that column, and that no will be in red. As you move down, you've got your credits, so that's any payments going out. So it's going to be your landlord payments, agency payments, contractor payments, tenant payments, etc. All showing here. As you get to the bottom again, if you scroll over onto the right hand side, you've got your reconciled column for your credits. And again, everything for that period for me has been reconciled, so I know that everything that's gone through my bank has gone through Expert Agent and vice versa, and my accountant should be happy with me for the month of October. At the bottom of this report you've got some really handy totals. We've got our debits total and our credits total for this period. So I've had 65,335.99 come in and 60,904.54 go out. of that money that's come in and gone out, I've then got whether it's been reconciled or unreconciled. So I know that everything's been reconciled. I've got a 0 on my unreconciled there. And then these boxes on the right hand side, these are really important for especially your bookkeeper and accountant. You've got our total balance, so that's the balance for the period. So that's our debits less our credits. Again, the amount of that that's been reconciled and the amount of that that's unreconciled. We've then got any balance that's been brought forward, so we tick that box at the top, include balance brought forward. Because of that, I know that I've got an £8,161.76 balance that's been brought forward from outside of our October period. All of that's been reconciled, so I know that it happened and it was correct, which gives me my to-date balance of £12,593.21. That's my balance for the period, plus the balance that I've brought forward. So I know as of the 31st of October, according to Expert Agent, my bank balance was £12,593.21, and in theory, that should match up with my October balance on my bank statement. I've got the opportunity to print this bank reconciliation report out, or I can export it to a CSV so it's in a spreadsheet format. We recommend that once you've reconciled, you print or export this report, and then you've got it on hand to refer back to should you need to. And as we said, it will be very useful for your bookkeeper or an accountant so that they know the figures that you've had for that particular month. So that concludes our Advanced Training 3 for our bank reconciliation and our accounts. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video.